जो व्यक्ति हैं जो जेएनयू में रिटायर भी हो जाएंगे पर उनको जुनूटा से रिटायर नहीं होना चाहिए। मैं उनकी बात कर रहा हूं जो 3 टाइम has been president of JNU 3 times। उनकी एंथुसियाज्म, उनकी एक्टिविज्म हम सबसे कहीं ज्यादा है इस उम्र में भी। एंड he has been associated with JNU since 1990 and continuously, and he wants to be involved every day, every moment, you know, so much he feels about JNU and he is known, he speaks everywhere in JNU, outside on television. He has been president of the Federation of Teacher Association of Central Universities, 3 times president, you know. That's not a small thing, you know. I mean, after 1 year I feel tired, you know. But 3 times he still wants to carry on being an active part of JNU. Professor M.Chenoy.
Esteemed teachers, particularly my teacher, Professor C.P. Bhamri, who has a devastating sense of humor, but today it was not unleashed. And I'd like to tell the students also that even teachers are students because we also study. And the tradition in JNU from 72 has been that the students have always been backed by the teachers. Always. No matter which vice chancellor might be there in the Pink Palace. And if you're worried about the greed, remember he's also locked in. Now I'd like to make just one kind of observation on nationalism, and that is on the internationalist aspect of Indian nationalism. For example, during the Spanish Civil War in the 1930s, in 1936, Jawaharlal Nehru and V.K. Krishna Menon went to Spain and expressed their solidarity with the Spanish Republicans. Of course, because of the cordon sanitaire by the West, and also because of Stalin's pact with the Nazis, they were defeated. But even after that, there has been a very strong internationalism. So the entire idea of the non-aligned movement germinated especially with Nehru and Marshal Tito of Yugoslavia, and brought in Zhou Enlai from China, Bang Sukarno from Indonesia, and Gamal Abdul Nasser from Egypt. These were all the tallest leaders of their time. And this continued. So, for example, when there was a move to make the Security Council particularly concentrated in power, the non-aligned movement led by these people forced a redecision. They've also been the ones behind various resolutions ranging from Israeli occupation of Palestinian settlements to the Katanga attempt by the Belgians and the Americans, where the Indian troops were sent to fight in the Congo under the UN humanitarian forces. Looking at other things, you must remember that despite China's great anger, India welcomed the Dalai Lama in 1959 onwards. And that was the real reason for the 1962 war, not just the colonial boundaries. But even after that, when, for example, the West Pakistani army was unleashed by Zulfikar Bhutto on what was then called East Pakistan, it was India which supported the liberation struggle, the Bangladesh liberation struggle. And it did so after an alignment, an actual treaty between Indira Gandhi and the Soviet Union. And during that support to the liberation struggle, the US sent the US naval carrier, nuclear-powered nuclear carrier, USS Enterprise into the Bay of Bengal, violating the 200-mile border. And the US tried to force a ceasefire so that part of East Pakistan could be served and safe for them. But that did not happen. And it was a very major thing because in Bangladesh, 3 million people died. Hundreds of thousands of women were raped. And because of the complete commotion, the Indian government also allowed 10 lakh Bangladeshis to settle in Assam. One more example, the LTTE, the Indian Special Forces, that is paratroopers and paracommandos, both moved into Sri Lanka and showed the Sri Lankan army how to fight the LTTE, and they were able to get rid of that scourge. And even now, if you look at the speeches in the UN General Assembly, many people say that those made by the Indian delegation are amongst the best. So India is national also because its nationalism, it seeks to spread across borders to make it a better world for all. Of course, with governments change, things change. We are now told that our rather scowling Prime Minister is going to meet this chump called Trump later in the year. I'm sure they'll do great things if they understand each other. But the legacy that we have of our internationalism is very important. We must not forget it. Because this government is trying to show that everything is Bhagwan, everything is with everything India has done before, that we cannot allow to happen. Because it means that all the credit that we have got, the traditions we have built, the knowledge we have compiled on our external affairs, on our interventions should continue. And in a sense, they are continuing. Because now BRICS, which includes Britain, includes Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, is a body in which India is very much there, as India is also in IPSA, which is India, Brazil, South Africa. So India's nationalism is not a nationalism confined to the nation, but it is a nationalism which goes abroad, and it's not a coincidence that our greatest saint, Gandhi, actually learned his tactics and strategy in South Africa and brought that home here, and also helped recruit Indian soldiers to fight in World War I. Or Netaji, linked up of course with the fascists, but it was part of an extension of Indian nationalism. So I do hope that when the next volume comes out, there will be some scrutiny and discussion on the externalities of this, which is very powerful, that is India's extension in world affairs. India's nationalism as a nationalism which is not confined only to what happens with its boundaries, but a nationalism which actually extends outwards as it has always been. I think there have been very long speeches, so I will stop here. But I would like to tell the students again, don't worry, we will be with you. The UGC, I don't know what they see, but I can tell you we will be with you, whether in that, with the extremely unfortunate disappearance of Najib, and why the Vice Chancellor did not allow you to search the forest in other places earlier, and only brought in the police much later. So I came home to find the police looking in my almara in case anyone was inside. So I had to tell them that Najib was not 3 feet tall. But it was a mess, but I think with JNU we can get over it. I'll just tell you one story that happened. In our first convocation in 1972, Balraj Sahni was called to speak, but the students' union said, no, we'll also speak. So VC Koshi, who was the president of the students' union from the SFI, he also spoke. And he spoke of the bourgeois landlord government and the bourgeois landlord regime and capitalism and feudalism and semi-feudalism. And the press was horrified. They said, what kind of convocation is this? Luckily, our Vice Chancellor, unlike this one, was a diplomat. So G. Parthasarathy said, but you know, this is a university. You can say anything, as long as it's coherent. And that is the JNU tradition. So if you can get behind the grill or over the grill, please tell it to that gentleman so he doesn't get lost from JNU. Thank you.